setup I've got going on here. So if you're on YouTube, I would love for you to comment down below and let me know that you can hear me. That's the first key, is making sure that y'all can hear me. I would love to know. So drop a comment in the chat or in the comments area, if you wouldn't mind, ever so lovingly, please letting me know. And then my Facebook friends are here. All right, so for you, the YouTube's live. I got Facebook going at the same time. Welcome. This is going to be day 7's video on the Glute Goddess Challenge. So if you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, we are wrapping up 7 days of glute-focused workouts. It was a free challenge, and the girls have been crushing it. I've got my Facebook babes rolling in, so let me say hi to them real quick. I got Marla and Wendy. There's about 5 eyeballs on me, so welcome to this last day 7 live. And this actual live is very specific to those who feel like they work out, but they just don't really see the results of their training. And they say that their diet is good. Like, I eat good, right? So we're gonna go over what does eat good really mean, why macros are super important, and also the fact that calories are important, but it's what makes up those calories that truly do matter. All right, let me just do some tech support here and make sure if you guys are on YouTube, I would love to know if you can actually hear me, because it's not gonna be great if you can't, right? So please let me know over on YouTube. I would love that. I have a feeling I am muted there, but let me know. Okay, and I can always repost this once I get it edited. Okay, sorry to keep you waiting. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump in. Now, when it comes to macro tracking, if you've been hanging out with me for any bit of time as of late, you know that I'm no longer macro tracking. But yet here I am talking to you about the importance of knowing what your macros are. And the reason for that is because when you are training and your goal is physique change, you have to be very strategic with the amount of protein you're eating, and a lot of times women fall short there. So we're going to deep dive into some of my favorite sort of isms about this entire process, okay? Now, I would love to know by the viewers that are here who tracks macros currently and who kind of just wings it. If you can drop me a comment, I would love to know. And let me know how that is actually working out for you. If you are just sort of winging it, you're eating whatever, you feel like you eat good, you know, how is that strategy working out for you? Please let me know, chime in, and I would love to see how you're going about it right now. Now, I don't see Denise here for some reason. I see her there, but it is not, Denise, you should have an invite to join, so let me know if that notification came up so that way we can pop you in. Coach Denise is going to be joining in, so she can help me with the macro wizardry that is tracking macros. Let's see, Kristen says, I used to. I've taken a break, but I cannot wait to start again. Marla says that she does track. Denise tracks, and she says, I'm in maintenance and allow some flexibility. Gina tracks. Okay, so you guys get it, right? You're trackers, you understand the importance of it, and we're gonna jump into some of the common things that people forget about when they are trying to actually make change with their physique. Now, over on YouTube, I see Denise Bazabal. Can you hear me? I'm assuming you can, because you said hi, everyone. I'm gonna say, hello, can you hear me? All right. Oh, Coach Glitter's here. Hello, Coach Glitter. And Chris, you guys just walked in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now that I feel like all the tech has worked itself out as best as it's going to, because I'm doing 2 streamings here. Okay, why should you count macros versus worrying about just your calories? Now, if you are just interested in dropping weight on the scale and you do not care what your physique looks like, then you most definitely can do calories and you will be successful with that, right? You'll drop body fat and you'll also drop scale weight. That will be a no-brainer. You know, we're talking about calories at the end of the day. So what that means in the grand scheme of things is if you're just tracking your calories, let's say that you normally eat 2,000 calories a day and you know that you want to lose 5 pounds, and a part of, or 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever, part of that process is you need to drop your calories. Then let's say you decide you want to do 1,500 calories. And we're going to use that for a lot of the examples today that I'm talking about. So that way you kind of can grasp a lot of these little concepts. Okay, so let's just say that you drop down to 1,500 calories. Well, if you're in a deficit, meaning you typically takes 2,000 calories to sustain your current physique, you drop to 1,500, you will start to see the scale move, right? You'll start to see some progress on the scale. Now, that's great, that's fine. However, most of us, while yes, we do want to lose scale weight, some of us, the other piece of this is how is my physique actually going to look when I start to drop body weight? Now, that is when paying attention to your macros is incredibly important. You want to make sure that you're getting in enough protein. And the reason being is that your muscles are going to be created by the protein you're consuming along with the training that you're doing. And if you're not training adequately, that's going to contribute to some of this issue. But the bigger problem then becomes for my girls who are training consistently and they're like, nothing's changing, my body's not changing. Well, the first thing I go to is I ask them, well, what does your diet look like? And the default tends to be, well, I eat pretty good. Amanda knows how much I love this phrase. So then we start to pull that apart and then we realize they're definitely not getting in enough protein. Hi, Denise, I see you now. There you are. We're not the curly-headed double D team, but right now you're here. And I'm so happy for that. Yay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Can you hear me?
Sweet. So with this, I'm going to jump into the most important thing about this entire topic, which is macros are going to determine your body composition. So what does that mean? The macro breakdown is going to tell you what your body is going to look like when you start to drop body fat. And this is why you see a lot of people when they go into some kind of program or they go into a contest prep or something like that, they're eating a pretty high amount of protein. And the reason being, like I mentioned earlier, is that that protein is going to make up what you want for your macros to then change your body composition, to change what your actual body looks like. Now, the other point I need to drive home here is that all diets that restrict your calories work. So you could go on, any of these modalities that a lot of people find popular, which we'll dive into here in just a bit. But the problem then becomes, well, do you really want to do that? Is that something that is sustainable for you? A lot of people are like, well, my friend Sally, she did this one program and I want to do it because it worked for her. But what they need to understand is that if it worked for Sally, it doesn't necessarily mean it was the type of diet that she did. It means that she was likely in a calorie deficit as well. So you can do keto, but if you're doing keto and you're not also tracking your calories, it really doesn't matter. If you eat too many calories by way of fat, just because you're doing keto does not mean you're going to see any change. You will likely stay the same. And we see this oftentimes when people try to pigeonhole themselves into a particular diet, into a particular dietary theory. So all diets that restrict calories work. Now, when you are looking at what you want to do with your nutrition, you have to remind yourself of that. So when the newest diet fad comes up, the next diet phase, and something piques your attention because you see some extraordinary results from somebody, you need to remind yourself, well, yes, they likely did achieve those results by following that structured, strict diet plan. But at the end of the day, those diet plans will also need to restrict their calories in order for them to see results when it comes to fat loss. That was an elevator speech, right? Did I leave anything out there?
No, honestly, I think it's just a big key thing is like people give specific diets too much credit because they don't understand the concept that we are teaching here. They don't understand that it's how much you consume versus how much you burn that is going to give you the result that you're looking for in terms of calorie counting. Now, whatever diet you are doing at the time to help you stay consistent with that restriction of calories will work. Exactly, like you just said that. But so many people say, oh, I did keto and it worked. No, it was not the keto that worked. It was the fact that you were consuming less calories that worked. But because people are not educated on that, they don't understand that.
Right.
They think it was just the diet. So we are here to educate you guys, okay? This is the real deal. So listen up, take notes, because this is the game changer.
It is a game changer. It's super important that, you know, when you look at tracking macros, that you really understand that at the end of the day, that is what it boils down to. It is, what are these macros? It is a game changer. Oh my gosh, it's super important that my voice is coming in somewhere. Hold on. Tracking macros, that you really understand that at the end of the day, that is what it boils down to. Echo. It is a game changer. Okay, sorry. I'm new here, clearly. All right, so then we're gonna move on to one of my favorite things to do, is give an example, right? So I give this example. This is from a workshop that we do, you know, in the studio, but the French fry diet versus the chicken breast diet. And I like to give this analogy because I think it really drives home why it's important to worry about the actual quality of what your foods are and the actual micronutrient or macronutrient breakdown, so that way you can be successful when it comes to the time that you're spending in the gym. So I want you to imagine if you are on this example of the 1,500 calories that we are using in terms of this fake diet that I'm talking about. And I want you to imagine if you took that 1,500 calories and all you did was eat 1,500 calories of French fries. Now, I know it sounds delicious, but this is what you're eating all day long, right? And just want to, in a fake world, just come along the ride with me. 1,500 calories. Technically, you're in a deficit. So if that is a deficit for you, you will lose weight eating 1,500 calories of French fries. Now, there are a whole host of YouTube videos that you can find if you jump on YouTube, where people do these kind of like studies where they'll use themselves as guinea pigs and they'll eat fast food for 30 days and they'll show you how they did it and they lost weight. It's because that the food inherently isn't the problem. That's not the issue. It's that they are actually creating a calorie deficit. So the fries themselves aren't bad. And that's why we like to talk about macros and how this is more of a flexible way to have some fun with your nutrition and be able to do this over the long haul, which is essentially just balanced eating. And we'll go into an 80-20 versus a 90-10 here in a second. So then you look at the French fry diet, you're doing your 1,500 calories. Okay, great, you lose some weight, right? Now let's look at twin number letter B, right? The second person decides they want to do 1,500 calories of just an all chicken breast diet. They too will also be in a deficit, which means that they will likely lose some weight on the scale. So I want you to think about the French fry person, and I want you to think about the chicken breast person. Now, French fries are going to be carbs and fat, right? Chicken breast is going to be exclusively protein. I want you to think about what the body composition of those two people are going to look like if they were to drop, let's say, 10 pounds on the French fry diet versus the chicken breast diet. I can bet that the person on the chicken breast diet is going to visually look a lot more tight, toned, sculpted, whatever the word is that you want to choose. You're probably going to see much more definition if said subjects were both doing the same exact training program, right? So this is why what your calories are made of is incredibly important when it comes to what your physique is going to look like. I always use the analogy of, I want you to imagine that your body is like a receipt of all the things that you're putting in it, right? And it spits out, and this is the data that you get. But if you're feeding it just carbs and fat and just a very small trace amount of proteins, it's going to appear very different than somebody who is prioritizing protein.
Exactly. And not only is the physique going to be different, but how this person feels is going to be very different as well. More energized, more just, not with gut issues, and just going to have the energy part is a big part, because what you're feeding into your body in terms of micronutrients as well with the quality of food will determine how you feel. And the thing is that first you'll notice that you feel different, and then you notice that you look different.
Right. Exactly, exactly. And you will feel tremendously different, when it does come to the actual way that your body is operating, how you're able to train and all those things. And that's why we stress the importance of macros being, I don't want to say the end all be all, but incredibly important when it comes to figuring out, why is my body not changing, right? I'm doing all the things, doing the exercises, and like, look, there is a whole host of other reasons it could be that I cannot go into without this video being 4 hours long, because we got to talk about other things like your sleep, your stress, your hormones, right? There's a whole plethora. But if we're just talking about all those things being relative and the same, and we're looking just at the diet piece of things, this is where you really need to take it a step back and be a little more intentional with the actual nutrition that you're consuming if your goal is physique change. So coming back to my good friends, keto, vegan, vegetarian, paleo. I want to let you know, if you take nothing away from this video, I always like to throw that in there at some point, is that you can still get fat or gain fat, however you want to say it, by doing these dietary theories. Just by the nature of doing these does not mean you're going to be successful, right? Because this goes all the way back to this. Diets that restrict calories work. So if you're doing any of these and also you're in a deficit, then fantastic. Sure, you will definitely see the scale move. However, if you are deciding that you're going to do one of these dietary theories, but you're just going to I'm doing keto, so I can eat all the fat I want because there's magic in that. That is not true. That is actually very false. So if you overeat in any of these dietary theories, you're going to put on body fat. So if you're going to need to pay attention to your calories, wouldn't you rather do it in a way that actually is going to make sense for your body composition, number one? And number two, use a style that actually you would enjoy, right? Like, do you want to eat fat forever for the rest of your life? Some people do. And if that's you, great. Do you want to go vegan? Unless these are by way of some kind of prescription by your physician for metabolic conditions, or you have, religious purposes or ethical purposes, totally different conversation. But if you're deploying one of these as your strategy because your friend lost a bunch of weight with it, which you still have to understand at the end of the day, is that they probably saw some results because they were also restricting calories somewhere. Did I nail that? I feel like that was pretty straightforward.
Yes. You got it.
Right? Like, have you ever done keto? Who's done keto? Who thought that one of these was a silver bullet? I would love to know in the comments. Make sure to plug that in there. I am checking the comments here, right? Like, I've done it. It's been an issue before for me where I was like, I'm just gonna try this thing and I'm gonna eat all the things. And it definitely comes down to, you have to be in a calorie deficit.
Yeah, I did try it, actually just because I wanted to understand it. And so I thought there's no better way to understand it than to just do it. So I did it it was a 4-week thing. I lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I lasted 3 weeks and I was like, I really wanted to finish because I'm not a quitter, but I was miserable. I was so miserable. And I did lose weight in those 3 weeks, but I remember telling my husband, I hate the way I look. I look skinny. I look flat. I don't look fit. I don't look toned. And I know that I am, and it was just, once I brought the carbs back in, my body filled out and I looked fit and I looked toned. And my energy was so much better because for me personally, just trying to work out without carbs, it just was not happening. So did I lose weight? Absolutely. But how did I look? It was not the look that I was achieving. And my body just felt horrible with all of that fat. It may have been just because I wasn't used to that much fat, but I was the guy putting butter in my coffee and, eating tablespoons and tablespoons of olive oil in my food. And it was just, I don't see how that is sustainable, because at the end of the day, whatever you choose to do, whatever you do to lose the fat or the weight is what you have to continue doing to keep it off. And after 3 weeks, there was no way that I could see myself continuing to do that. Now, it might work for some people, but the experiences that I've heard, people were like, it was fun while it lasted. I got to eat lots of fun foods, but then I felt like crap. Or I went to the doctor and my doctor said, your cholesterol is through the roof. What are you doing? You need to change your diet. That's the other thing that we don't, take into consideration as well. It's like the after effect, the health effects that things like that could have on your body versus when you have a balanced meal, like when you're tracking macros.
Exactly. Such a difference, right? It makes a huge difference. Now, I will say that a lot of times we see women who say, well, I'm going to do keto until I lose a specific amount of weight, and then I'm going to start weight training, and then I'm going to change my strategy. And that is like ass backwards, right? It's like, that's not a thing. That shouldn't be a thing, right? Why waste the time is my point. I think there is this ultimate fear of like, oh, well, if I start strength training, then I'm going to look bulky, or I'm going to look just like a linebacker, or I'm going to look like I do steroids, or I have all this bulk to me. And that is absolutely false. And just, it's not a thing. Okay. We have clients all the time that come in and they start with weight training, and then they start to understand the concept of the nutrition piece of it, and then it starts to click for them, and then they have fantastic results. And we have some obviously great testimonials to back up that theory. So just to kind of recap, we talked about macros. So what your calories are made of are going to determine what your body looks like, right? So making sure you have enough protein. And just to circle back, because I know macros is a very common word for us, but I feel like I just want to touch on it real briefly as far as what that stands for. I know I probably should have done at the beginning, but we have the curse of knowledge sometimes, so I just launch into the topic. But macros stands for macronutrients, and that is going to be comprised of 4 macronutrients. And the 4th one is usually one that a lot of people forget about, and you might be like, I didn't know there was a 4th one. But we have protein is a macro, carbs, fat, and then we also count alcohol. Now, I'm not telling you that alcohol is a macro you need to consume or needs to be a part of your macronutrients, but it is a macro, or it is counted differently than how you would normally count and track your other macros. That itself is a video for another topic, which we go over exhaustively in the Goddess Body Project. But alcohol needs to be tracked differently. So if you are one of these girlies that's like, ooh, I'm having my 70 calorie beer or my 100 calorie whatever, you need to factor in some other things. It's not metabolized the same way as normal foods are processed. It has a whole different process to get through your system. Therefore, we have to track it differently. So you are actually consuming more of your macros if you aren't tracking alcohol appropriately. So that is macronutrients, and that's essentially what we're diving into today. Now, moving on to why this is still very important is I like you guys. I like you a lot. And I don't want you to suffer through these kinds of diets if it's unnecessary. And also, I want you to live a long time. So we have to find my favorite, which is the Goldilocks spot of how do you do this shit and not feel like you're always dieting or feel like you're the other way, right? Where you're just like, you're not paying attention to anything that you're doing with your nutrition. So we have to find that sweet spot. And I'm going to talk to you about the 2 areas that I typically like to flex between now that I have a really great understanding of how my body operates and how my body uses fuel and why macros are important. Is there is an 80-20 spot and there is a 90-10 spot. Now, what this means is 80% of the time you're eating single ingredient foods, whole foods, you're prioritizing, the macros in the cleanest way possible, and you're really focusing on whole important nutrition that is also going to carry over to a lot of your micronutrients as well, so not just your macronutrients. And then 20% of the time you're having some other foods, right? Mind you, still fitting in with your calories if your goal is restricting calories for body fat loss, right? So you can still do 80-20 and still be in a diet phase. You don't have to be just like, oh, I'm in a diet, I can only eat the foods that are on this meal plan, the 6 foods, and I can eat nothing else, everything else is bad. This is a flawed way of thinking, and this is why a lot of people struggle, is because they can't grasp the concept that they can do an 80-20 approach and still get results. In fact, I've been receiving a lot of DMs and messages from girls who are like, how are you losing weight and you're not tracking your macros? Like, how is that even happening? And I had In-N-Out, and I had ice cream, and I've had alcohol, and all these things over the past, I think we're at like 6 weeks now, right? I'm down almost 10 pounds. Well, that's because I'm living in the 90-10 area, which is what I'm going to talk about next. But I also know that there has to be some balance. And for myself personally, if I try to say that I'm doing strict dieting, I'm not having any fun foods, I'm not going to adhere to that. That's not something I'm interested in doing anymore. So with the 80-20 approach, I like to say that this is where I fall typically in the fall, right? When it's the holidays and there's parties and there's this and there's that and there's all these celebrations and lots of things that are happening and there's an abundance of yummy foods, my diet is probably going to be in the 80-20, right? 20% of the time I'm having some pumpkin spice lattes and who knows what else, whatever else lands in my lap. Now, right now, I'm in a fat loss phase, and some of you that go into programs can understand that you go into this super focused phase. I'm going to be 90-10, and this is where we want you to have that ability to kind of float between depending on what season you're in.
Yes.
Now, Denise, I know that you track macros, and that is one of your sole ways when you actually go into a prep. So I would love for you to just share what maybe that kind of looks like for you. You know, do you do more of an 80-20? Do you do more of a 90-10? What seems to be a sweet spot for you when you're not in like those last, let's say like 4 weeks of a show?
Yeah. So in prep, it's definitely more of like a 95-5, I will say, for me. But it also depends on my starting point. It might be to where when I start, because you start typically, you know, maybe 20 weeks out or 16 weeks out, depending on that, it might be a little bit of an 80-20, and then it evolves into a 90-10, and then a 95, and then those last 4 weeks, it is 100% on point. There is no slipping, because you know how it is, but that's on prep. So I think there's an evolution of how it goes, and that is to help you get through it as well. Because if I was like 95-5 for 20 weeks, me personally, I know I could do it. That's very difficult, and I would, it's not something I want to do. It's not worth it for me. So it's just about, you know, finding where you are and finding, like you said, that sweet spot. But when I'm not on prep, so for example, right now, I'm a little bit in a maintenance. I'm about to go into a cut. But I'm still not as lenient, because when you are in a maintenance phase, it's very easy to slip, because you're like, oh, I have more calories. Oh, I can afford this. Oh, I can do that. And you're a little bit more relaxed. So I almost feel like this is where I actually need to pay more attention, and I'm still tracking everything. But what I do is I add in the fun foods into my calories, or if I know I'm going to have a few drinks, I add those in, and so I'm still within the range that I want to be in for maintenance, but I'm still having fun foods. So that works for me. Some people, you know, even allow more flexibility. There might be a couple days where I say, you know what, I'm going on date night, and so today we're going to go out to dinner, but I make sure that all my other meals around the day are a little smaller, or they're just a little bit more tight, you know, on the macros, so that I can allow for that flexibility. To me, that's the way you can have balance, because you're making choices. That's really what it is. But if you're in the mindset of feeling like FOMO because you can't have things, then it doesn't matter what you do, keto or track macros or whatever. If you have that mentality of FOMO, none of it is going to work. And I know we'll talk about mentality later, but you know me, I always go towards that mindset thing. But yeah, but that's kind of how it's working for me right now.
Perfect. So you can see how there is some ebbs and flows to the strategy, and it's not like when she goes into prep, she's going vegetarian or she's just doing keto or any of that, right? And so a lot of people are like really intrigued and perplexed at the process that it takes to get really lean and shredded for a show. And a lot of times people use that as like a marker for like, oh my gosh, like so healthy. And we're like, no, that's not true. You know, it's not healthy. And you honestly, like, granted, we're both, you know, like we're both in the bodybuilding world, and Denise and I, you know, competitors at heart, but we don't tout that as how everybody should be dieting, because it's not how everybody should be dieting. It's like, it's so attractive because people are like, oh, I want to eat and I want to diet like I'm going to compete, but I don't want to compete. And I'm like, you'll never get shredded that way. Because you won't. I mean, people have come to me time and time again. And I think like when I very first started coaching people, you know, well over 10 years ago, I was like, okay, let's do that, right? Let's get you onboarded. We'll do whatever. I put them through a meal plan and diet and all that. And the reality of it is I've had this many people actually get to a point where they were like stage shredded and ready, because the reality, like I said, is there's nothing holding your feet to the fire to actually get on that stage. So then when you have temptations, or when you've had a rough day, or you're tired or whatever, you don't have the contest looming over your head like, oh, you can't eat that. Remember, you're getting on stage. And there is nothing, there's an indescribable feeling of a contest prep hunger that nobody understands until you actually go through a contest prep. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That is the next level hungry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that, like, there's no need for you to get that strict or restricted. It's not going to get you any results quicker, because what's going to happen is it's not going to be sustainable, and you're likely going to end up quitting. It's just the reality of it. It's not a good time. It's not fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the 80-20 rule, the 90-10 rule. Again, weaving these in and out just depending on where you're at, what season of life you're in. And yes, these two still apply even if you have a lot of body fat to lose, or you have a lot of weight to lose, right? These still apply. You don't need to be in 90-10 just because you have more weight to lose, or you can't default, or you can't, you know, think, oh, I can't go to 80-20 because I need to get to my goal weight first, and then I can let the foot off the gas pedal. This is going to be a more sustainable approach. It might take you a little bit longer, because even if you're in a calorie deficit, we still have to think about other factors, right? Like the thermic effect of food. And if you're not eating as much protein, your body's not going to be working as much, you know, as hard to actually digest, and therefore not expend as many calories. So you might not achieve that level of leanness as quickly with 20% more processed foods and things like that. But nonetheless, you will still see results. It's really, it comes down to your calories, okay? Now, I always like to make this disclaimer. I got some hate on one of my reels. Did I tell you about this the other day? About how I had posted about lunch meat. It's on my Instagram. And somebody was like, I am unfollowing you. You are condoning processed meats. And I'm like, go for it. I'm not the food babe. I never told you that I was going to be promoting everything is organic and free range and this and that. And while those things are fantastic, and it'd be great and ideal in a perfect world, I live in reality. And the reality of it is that I'm a human, and sometimes I want a crumble cookie. And sometimes I am in a pinch because I'm busy, much like you probably, and I will make a sandwich with some turkey meat or chicken or things like that. And those things are very few, and they're not very frequent. And so the reality of it is that you want to make sure that this fits with your life. If you're having to overhaul everything and everything has to change, and you have to just completely revamp your entire family's nutrition and all this, it is very overwhelming, and it is very hard to make that kind of a shift like that overnight. Now, again, back to my point earlier with these types of dietary theories, if you have a medical condition or a metabolic process that requires that you, or a metabolic condition that requires that you make some drastic changes, that's different. But the reality of it is that a lot of us just want to be able to get through and get in enough protein, and how can we make that happen? And so you have to give yourself a little bit of grace with everything not needing to be perfect.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you hit on something about, you know, revamping your family's nutrition. That's one of the biggest challenges that I hear from clients that come and want to work with us is, I don't want to have to make their food my food, right? And that's like the biggest misconception, that people think they have to eat that way, and you don't. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you know, my family loves the food that I'm eating, and we all get to sit down at the table together and have the same meal. Now, yes, granted, you might be eating a different amount that they are eating, or maybe you have one, a side salad instead of more potatoes or something like that. But in general, you're not cooking like separate meals for your family, because that is not sustainable. That's not something that you can do for the rest of your life. And if you can't see yourself doing it for the rest of your life, it's temporary and it's going to eventually fail.
Exactly. And with, with a lot of these dietary theories, I'm not shitting on these,
Yeah.
okay? I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with these. There are merits to each and every single one of these, and you can still implement some of these sort of principles into a flexible dieting process, right? If you really enjoy a higher fat diet, great. We've done that before. I have done that with lots of clients, lots of one-on-one clients, right? We tailor their nutrition because they're like, I'm not really a big carb eater. And I'm like, oh, of course I love carbs, is the most magical macro, but we will switch things up, and you really have to know yourself, right? So at the end of the day, with our philosophies when it comes to physique change, we're going to prioritize protein, right? Protein is going to be the top one, the top tier priority for you to make physique change when you're pairing that with your weight training. And then when it comes to your carbs and your fat, there's where you have a lot more flexibility. Some days you might want more carbs and less fat. Some days you might want more fat and less carbs. And that is where you can be a bit more, AKA flexible with your dieting, is with those macros. And if you still stay in that same deficit of calories, you're going to notice change. So this is another just side note that I don't want to put a pin in, is that a lot of times when women start macro tracking, I'm sure Denise, you've had clients who've probably shared this with you too, is they obsess about getting their macro numbers 100% correct. Or, I can never get my macros 100%. And like, we've had people just tell me they quit because of that. And I'm like, wait a minute, it was just getting good. Like, worry about the protein and worry about your calories in the beginning. And you might be like, how is that even a thing? Well, when you're tracking your calories and you start to put in what foods you're going to have for the day, you'll see it's like a bank account, right? You start out with 1,500 calories, like it's your $1,500 in your banking account. And as you start adding in your money or your food, it's going to start to detract from that main number. And you can see, okay, well, as I'm adding in what I want to eat for the day, my protein, I've hit my protein, and I'm real close to my calories just based off of what those other foods are that you're putting in there. So you can play around with that, and it will serve you really, really well as a long-term strategy, as long as you feel like your workouts aren't suffering as a part of that. And what I mean by that is when you start to play around with the carbs too much, you might notice that like your training is a little bit lackluster. You're not feeling as strong. Maybe you're not recovering as well because you want the protein and the carbs. So that's when you get a little more intuitive and you can play around with things. Okay. Well, I think we've drilled this down enough, but this point is basically saying there is no magic diet. And I know we've beat that one down, but the real question is, what can you stick to long term? What diet or what way of eating can you do day in, day out, and it not feel stressful? Like one more thing you have to worry about. I like the fact that, Denise and I, you could probably drop us into any restaurant, any country, anywhere, any planet, and we could go like, okay, well, this and this is on the menu, so I can have this and this, and you just start to figure it out. It's like your own little macro Jenga, right? You start to understand the concepts of figuring out what your protein needs to be and how the rest of your macros can sort of fall into place. So ask yourself that, what can you stick to long term? Then we have a bit of a mindset level up. And I like to think that if you're hanging out with us, that you are on the trajectory, if not already here, where you're leveling up your mindset, because you need to realize that strict diets are very 2019. Okay, probably older than that, but they are it's very archaic in terms of the advanced ways that people are actually getting results. And I don't want to say like we have some advanced strategy, because you still have to learn things. You have to take what we're sharing with you and you have to break down old narratives about how diets are supposed to work. And a lot of times you're chipping away at stone because you've been told for so many years that it has to be strict and it has to be one way, when the reality of it is that's not the truth. Do you remember your first diet? Who remembers their first diet? I would love to know in the comments if you remember your first diet. Do you remember yours, Denise?
Mine was a grapefruit diet. It was a
What was
grapefruit
that?
diet. The grapefruit diet.
Oh yeah, the grapefruit
Yep.
diet.
So I was eating like half a grapefruit or something for breakfast, and then like, I don't even know, like another grapefruit or something for lunch, and then a sensible dinner. That's that word, a sensible dinner, which was like rabbit food and another grapefruit. So it was crazy. There's the confetti again. But yeah, it was not fun. I mean, did I lose weight? Yeah, but I probably did it for like less than 2 weeks.
Right.
I was miserable. I was starving. And then what happened after that is I ended up like binging, right? I'm like, screw this. And I went and binged on everything I was, in my mind, missing out on, right? So again, it's that whole mindset thing. But yes, the grapefruit diet is not my proudest moment.
I think I did the grapefruit diet as well. And we have all these great comments here. The cabbage soup diet, Weight Watchers, not eating. That is an anti-diet. I think I saw Slim Fast. The thread is moving really fast. Everybody's chiming in because everybody has a diet.
Linda says not
cabbage
eating.
soup diet lasted 2 days. Yeah, that's the reality of it. And listen, I get the attraction for that. I understand why people flock to do these things, especially if they know somebody who's done it or they've seen, some results somewhere or something. And the reality of it is those are temporary. They're Band-Aids. Great if you want to lose a quick 5 pounds, but it's not going to be sustainable and it's not going to stay off. Right. A lot of times with those diets, the initial drop that you see is just going to be water weight. And that's just, honestly, that's going to be the nature of most diets. Even when people start with us, they'll see if they're following everything and they're, checking all the boxes. The first couple weeks is when you're probably going to see the most decline on the scale, if that's where you're mainly focusing. And then after a while, it starts to level out. And that is normal. That is normal. You should not be losing rapid amounts of weight every single week. That's not healthy. That's not sustainable. And you are likely losing muscle as well, which is something that a lot of people don't think about, but is incredibly important. And why I love the fact that you're excited and it kind of gives you that motivation in the beginning. You cannot anchor to that as how things are going to go consistently, because that would just be weird. Okay, like you're just going to keep going down. Like fat loss looks a lot like this, right? It's like a very different scale than most people want to actually believe.
Yeah.
All right, so you got your mindset level up. And then the next one is talking about deprivation and how that causes desire, right? The more that you deprive yourself of something, guess what? Then you start to fixate on that thing and you want it even more. And just as an example of this, have you ever been in a position where you really want something, right? Maybe you're saving for something, you want to buy a special something. I know at this point when I was looking at Jeeps, okay, before I bought my Jeep, I was like, I would really want a Jeep. And I started researching. Well, guess what I saw all the time when I was driving around? Jeeps were everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a sign, right? And so when you deprive yourself or you don't have something, you can't have something that you really, really want, it creates that desire. And then you get into this cycle of binging and, a lot of times we see women who over restrict themselves, struggle with nighttime eating because during the day they're trying to be good and they're depriving, and then they get home and then it's just like they lose all of their motivation and their willpower because they've been depriving for so long. And I also think that this is a huge reason that a lot of women fall off on the weekends. It also goes hand in hand with your schedule and the way that you line up your weekends, because it looks usually different than your weekdays. So your habits are going to be a little bit different and what you do is going to be different on the weekends. But when it comes to the actual going off and eating like an asshole, which we talk about often, is during the week, what are you doing? Are you being so strict and I'm being good? And, I resisted the cookies and in the break room and I didn't have a donut and I didn't have Aunt Sally's famous apple pie when she came over for Thanksgiving, you know, whatever, and you restrict, and then the weekend comes and you've been white knuckling it all week, and then you go out to one dinner and then you just lose it, right? Everything goes out the window. And that's because during the week, you didn't do what I do, or probably Denise does, is we then build in sanity foods, okay? Sanity foods and what I also call meal finishers. So sanity foods are going to be anything that you tend to abandon or say is off limits when you go into some kind of diet. So I would love to know in the comments, what do you usually avoid like the plague because you know you can't have it when you go into a fat loss phase? Is there something that sticks out for you, Denise?
Now, I mean, not a lot now, but before I would have said like sweets, donuts, cookies. My trigger food, I talked about this in the group before, was pretzels.
What is it?
So pretzels, yeah, like just all kinds of pretzels, the soft pretzels, but even the hard pretzels, just anything pretzel was like big trigger for me. Yeah, but sweets primarily, chocolate is what it was. Like I said, now it's no longer the case, unless I'm on prep, of course. But now I've got a good handle on that. But in the past, for sure, the first thing that came out was sweets. And the thing about it is here is like, restriction leads to fixation. So the longer you tell yourself in your brain, I cannot have it, your brain is like, yeah, bitch, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
You know, and so restriction leads to fixation. And then when you're fixating on something, it creates stress because you're telling yourself, I can't have it, I can't have it, I can't have it, but you want it. And so that creates stress. And when we have stress, how many of you tell yourself you're a stress eater, right? You end up emotionally eating because now you're stressed, and that's what happens. You end up saying, F it, I'm going to eat all the cookies because I'm going to eat them all now, and then tomorrow is a new day and I won't have them anymore. That now or never like feeling that you put into your head, right? So it's really about, I mean, what we do as coaches with our clients is challenge them and say, you know what, on Tuesday I want you to eat a donut at 2 p.m. Why not? Donuts are not just for Saturdays or just for the weekends. Don't tell yourself that. Empower yourself to have that donut on Tuesday, and watch how when the weekend comes, you're like, meh, I already had the donut.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just about taking the novelty away. And what I like to tell clients is there is no good food and bad food. There's foods we eat more of and less of. That's it.
Precisely.
But there's nothing off the table. And when you start to change your mindset and start looking at food that way, you take control over the food versus the food taking control over you. And it's a game changer for sure. Yes.
It is, because now, I don't know about you, but I mean, I can go into any situation in, a party or whatever, some kind of event, and I don't feel like I have to eat everything because I have not been eating anything like this for a really long time or whatever. I've been avoiding this certain thing because if I find that there's something I'm really craving, I need to have it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to keep thinking about it, and then it's going to come out in other ways. I'm going to misbehave.
Yes.
In some other way. Okay. It's going to happen. So when we talk about these sanity foods and meal finishers, a lot of you are dropping in your favorites in here that you tend to avoid, which is fast food, crunchy carbs, chips. I saw sweets, chocolate. I think they all started to kind of go. But what I encourage you to do is I encourage you to intentionally work those into your diet during the week. Okay. And it might feel weird and you're breaking all the rules and you're not going to get an A+ on your dieting exam, but nobody's grading that shit. Okay. So just know that when you can start to work these things in, they are less elusive when you see them out in the wild and you feel like you need to eat them all, right? So some of my favorite things is I tell women, if chips are your thing, then Lindsay, I would want you to eat chips with your lunch, right? I think we talked about this on another thing. Chips on a Tuesday with your lunch, whatever that is. however you feel like you want to incorporate that within your diet for the day, put that in there. Now, if you track macros, what I would suggest also, and maybe Denise might have another variation of this, is we always want to tell you to track in advance, right? You don't want to go back and have to log what you eat or what you've eaten. You want to track ahead of time. And this kind of helps you figure out what you're eating for the next day, gets your brain on track with the task at hand. So getting in your proteins at least for the next day, and then asking yourself, what little sanity food do I want to give myself tomorrow? Plug it in there, put it in there. When tomorrow comes, maybe you decided, you know what, I really want something salty, not something sweet. Great, swap it out and do something else. So generally, like some fun things that I have on hand, like meal finishers for me, I will usually buy a little bag of those Ghirardelli chocolate squares, and they're individually wrapped. I keep them either in my freezer or in a drawer in my fridge, so they're kind of not in my visuals all the time. And then when I'm done with my meal, 9.5 times out of 10, I'm having a meal finisher. It's just the way it is. I like something sweet. I want to have a little sweet something. So things like that. Somebody else had put in there granola. Great. Granola used to scare me too, right? Anybody else afraid of granola? Because it is very calorie dense. And some people just think it's healthy and they eat copious amounts, and that is also not ideal. So with granola, I would encourage you to find a way to incorporate that granola into your day-to-day. Eat it every single day. This was one of the main ways that I was able to get over foods having such a hold on me with coming out of like strict dieting, like Denise and I've done for many, many years, is there was certain foods where there was no wiggle room for any of this in a contest prep diet. And so coming out of that, you could feel like a lion let out of a cage if you're not careful, right? And you just want to eat everything. So being incredibly aware of like what your triggers are. Some people I think put on here like peanut butter and things like that. I used to be afraid of peanut butter. Introduce them into your diet daily. Guess what? It's not going to be perfect. Some days you might eat more than you probably intended. And then other days you're going to be like, I could do without that. And this is a practice of understanding that your food does not need to have such a grasp on you and that you can trust yourself. But when you restrict for so long and don't allow any of this into your diet, then when it comes time to have it in, you're double fisted. Like it's just going down, right? Without any kind of rhyme or reason. And sometimes you're like, whoa, I just ate the pantry.
Yeah.
Right? I laugh because I've done it. So I don't know how you incorporate meal finishers or sanity foods, Denise, but you know, you've got your Ninja Creamy that tends to work for you as well.
Yes, that is like my sanity food right there. I love that. But I also have a jar with individually packed like little chocolates that I actually found at Costco, and they had different types. And this time it was one that was like a chocolate coconut or something. And so if I'm feeling like something sweet, then I'll grab one of those and I will track it. I will put it into my Fitness Pal, make sure that it's accounted for, because there have been times where I wanted to go for another one. And so then when I went in like to track it before I ate it, I was like, I better not. I'd rather have more potatoes or more something, because I know I'm going to have my air fried potatoes tonight, and I'll put it back. So it also helps keep you accountable if you track it before and not after. So not just with normal foods, with regular whole foods, but also with the sanity foods, or make that a habit. If you find yourself like wanting to go back to another food, set a boundary for yourself to track it first. I'm not saying don't eat it, but track it. And then it gives you a visual, and it just gives you another opportunity, another layer of, do I really want this? Or, you know, or can I have it later? Because the other thing that I always tell myself is, I already know what it tastes like. Right. I already know what it tastes like. Like, do I really want that again? Like, I don't have to have that right now, right? So if it's a new food, I don't know what that tastes like, and I really want to try it. Okay, so then I ask myself, is it worth it? Yes, let's have it. And if you're going to do that, eat it without guilt. Because like you were saying, Diane, you like, sometimes you eat all the things and you don't even know what happened. And you're like, I just ate the pantry. Like, what in the world? You didn't enjoy it, and now you feel guilty. Like, what's the point? If you're going to eat it, be happy about it. Eat it. And if you're not going to feel happy, then don't eat it. I know it sounds simple. It's easier said than done.
I know.
But really, if you start to like become aware and ask yourself these questions, it's so helpful to actually make the decision. And I'm not just saying make the decision to not eat it, but just make the decision that you are comfortable with. Because if you do decide to eat it, enjoy it. Otherwise, why eat it, right?
Exactly, exactly. So it's like if you're going to go through all that, you rather than sit there and guilt yourself while you're eating it, enjoy it. Enjoy it. There is something to be said about consuming your foods and not feeling a sense of guilt around it that I feel like actually makes a huge difference in the way that your body processes it. I know that sounds crazy, but I truly believe that there is something to that. I mean, I've seen some pretty incredible things and studies and things of people who, when they're eating certain foods and actually feeling negatively about how those foods are going to react in their body versus someone who is like, this is delicious. I'm enjoying it. It's nourishing my soul. It's, it's comforting, whatever. And you have a more positive mindset when you're actually going to consume it and how it actually breaks down in your body. I don't know. Well,
It
who knows
absolutely
if that's
does.
actually a thing.
That could be a whole nother
I
topic.
did probably about 2 weeks ago. I was craving a burger. I was craving, you guys, I love McDonald's. I know that's disgusting. I know it's awful. And it's probably my childhood trauma. But I love myself a double quarter pounder with cheese, extra greasy, French fries, and a Diet Coke. Yes, a Diet Coke, because it'll make me feel better about myself as I'm eating it, right? Now, I probably have this 5 or 6 times a year, okay? And that's actually a lot for me, considering that this was something that I would absolutely never eat, like when I was at the height of like my bodybuilding years and whatnot. That would not pass my lips, okay? And then I realized, you know what? Sometimes I enjoy that. I'm not competing anymore. I'm not trying to get on stage. I just want to look hot and healthy and feel good in my body. And I can work that into my nutrition occasionally if I'm craving it and still be in this like 80, 20, 90, 10 and make progress towards my goals. So I had In-N-Out a couple weeks ago instead of McDonald's. McDonald's, the line was too long. Believe it or not, In-N-Out here in Vegas, the line is not like it is in California. In California, it is insane. So anyways, I actually recorded a video for YouTube of me eating my In-N-Out and sharing with you my philosophies on the fact that you can eat In-N-Out and still get, still be on track with your goals. So stay tuned for that. But all that to say, you can have fast food, because I think Kim was saying fast food was one of her crutches. Yeah. It's just, what are you doing most of the time? Are you eating fast food most of the time? That's going to be an issue. Are you having it 5 or 6 times a year? Then there's a difference there, right? And you might not want to be as strict as I am with only having it 5 or 6 times a year, but you need to look at what you typically do and what's an improvement from that while still being on track with your goals. One of the questions that came in was, what happens if you can't stop at one? Oh, that's a good one.
Can I take this?
What's that?
I said, can I take this one?
Yeah, please do. I was like, I see you at the edge of your seat.
All right. So I was like, I saw the question and I was like, oh, I definitely want to help her with this. So, because I have totally been there. And all the things that you were talking about, Diane, about the positive experience and all that is absolutely a thing. I went through a course when I was a hardcore binger, and I can talk so much about that. So that's something we need to write down and actually do a live on that. It is a thing. But what happens if you can't stop at one? I would ask myself, Lindsay, why can't I stop at one? It's most likely because you're restricting yourself, because you are telling yourself, I'm not allowed to have it. So when you finally do allow yourself to have it, your brain is telling you, we need to have as much as possible because we love this and we're never going to have it again. Your brain is trained to say, this is not a food that I should have. And so when you allow yourself to have it, you have this now or never mentality. So my suggestion to you would be, start eating it every day. For 30 days at least, start eating it every single day. Take the novelty out of it. And if there may be sometimes where you eat 10, but when you eat it the next day, you'll find that you're going to want to eat less, or you're going to want to say, you know what? I think I'm not going to have it today. And so little by little, and it may not happen overnight, it may happen 2 weeks in, but little by little, your brain will start thinking, we already know what this tastes like. Like, we don't need this, or we can always have it tomorrow, because you can. So the reason you can't stop at one is most likely because you've been restricting. That's probably what's happening. So she said the Last Supper mentality. Exactly. Eat it now because it'll never happen again. Exactly. So start telling yourself there are zero foods that are off limits. There's just foods we eat more of and less of. That's it. That's it. Change that mindset, and I promise you it's a game changer. It worked wonders for me. So I can talk days for this because I'm so passionate about it, because I struggled so much with it, and I know what it feels like, and it's not a fun place to be, but there is a solution for you for sure. I'm getting
Absolutely, yeah.
all teary-eyed.
What's that?
I said I'm getting all teary-eyed about this topic.
No, I mean, thank you for sharing that. It's important for people to know, like, we're real humans. Like, we have gone through this stuff, right? There have been preps that I've got the chills right now. There have been preps that I have come out of, and a week after, I didn't even recognize my body because I gained 15 pounds in a week, right? I mean, it's not hard to do. Even the best coaches and the coaches that have been through it that know now, we know better, we know kind of like the hacks. Even with coaching clients and new clients, there's only so much we can control with that and really guide them on. And we still see women do it because, bodybuilding is an incredibly extreme sport. And when you restrict so hard and you come out of that, your brain is just like, it's illogical. And you start to think like, I need to eat this all. I need to, I haven't had it for 16, 20, 30 weeks, however long you've been in a prep. And some people are barely fazed by it, right? We have some girls that are great and they come out of it and they've been fed really well in their preps. They haven't been doing tons of cardio. So when they come out, they're like, I've been eating 2,500 calories in a cut. We call those our carby Barbies. I am not a carby Barbie, okay? I'm like sad salad Sally living on like lettuce and protein for 12, 16 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
So to Denise's point, it is really important that you know what your trigger foods are, what you tend to shut out when you go into a focus phase. And I really encourage you, like she did too, is like bringing those foods in and challenging yourself to consume them every day, and then see if you still want it 30 days. It might take you 2 weeks and you're like, I'm good with the Tonight Show of Ben and Jerry's every single night. Like, I'm good. I don't need that every day, right? Or maybe you just need a bite or two. And I actually did this coming out of, I want to say, I can't remember which show it was. It was before I got my pro card, but I had this fixation, and I think every girl who has competed or prepped, every prep brings you a different like food fixation. Yeah. And my first handful of preps were brownies, and like I had to have brownies, and I could eat literally an entire tray of brownies without a problem. Like, it would be gone within 24 hours of me having a show. And one show was ice cream. And I was so fixated. I just wanted ice cream so bad. And so when I got out of prep, I went and I bought myself a few of the pints of Ben and Jerry's, and they lived in my fridge. And then I also had like diet ice cream, like Halo Top and all that other crap that's just not as good. And I put both of them in there, and I allowed myself to kind of decide for the day, do I need this or do I need that? Can I have this? Am I going to go too far with this? Can I do a blend? Sometimes I would do a blend of both of them so I could have a little bit more volume, right? There was little strategies and tricks that I would sort of employ so that way I could get through. But the post-dieting or post-prep phase is real, and that is something that, even women who don't prep struggle with, clearly, right? Is just stopping at one.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing I was going to say, because like I think it started for me with prep, but then I didn't compete for like almost 4 years, because I had such a messed up relationship with food. And even when I wasn't on prep, I feel like I was binging even harder than when I had come off of a prep, because I had created like new restrictions in my mind about dieting that were not even related to prep. And so I feel like a lot of the ladies here might be struggling with that, just because you've been told all your life, you can't eat this if you want to look like this. And that is so not true. And we're here to tell you, because we've lived it. You can eat those foods and still have your goddess body. You really can. And so hopefully, you've learned something from that, or at least have hope that you can still eat these foods, because
Exactly.
it's a thing.
Exactly.
It really is.
I know, we didn't really touch too much on alcohol. We touched on alcohol at the beginning when I talked about what actual macros were, but this is oftentimes something that freaks women out too, is because they really enjoy being social and going out on the weekends and, having fun with their friends. And part of that is alcohol. We're all adults here, and I totally understand that. Is alcohol good for you? No, it's a poison. Your body doesn't recognize it as anything. And that's why we count it differently when it comes to macros, because it is completely devoid of nutrition. So when it comes to alcohol, again, all things in moderation, 80-20 or 90-10, there are ways to incorporate adult beverages into your diet strategy. In fact, I have had an alcoholic beverage almost every weekend since I've been in my little mini fat loss phase. I just know how to do it, and I know how to work that in and make sure that I'm not going too far off the rails with that. Is it something that you would want to be doing every day? Absolutely not. So I pick and choose, and I know when I can and when I should, and that all comes into play with essentially like what I have going on for the week.
Right.
So there are ways to still have fun and be on track, because a lot of I got a question from somebody on Instagram today they were saying they wanted to sign up for the Goddess Body Project, but they were going on vacation, I think at the end of September. And what I simply said to her was, you have to eat anyways. You probably are going to move your body at some point during vacation. You're going to be active, you're going to be moving around. So yes, I understand the hesitation to want to join an online program that focuses on diet and nutrition when you go on vacation. But this just goes to what we're saying, is that we want to teach you how to do this so you can go on vacation and not feel like, oh my gosh, I lost my shit on vacation. Now I need to come back and I need to hit it hard when I come home. Yes, we want you to go on vacation. We want you to have a great time. Denise just got back from a full Europe trip and had pizza and pasta and, had all these amazing foods. And she worked out while she was there because she, knows that that's what's going to help her feel good. And they walked a lot and they kept it very active. So this is how you start to embody a healthy and hot lifestyle, is when your vacation is what you're doing on your vacation is just an extension of your lifestyle already in some way, shape, or form, with a little more flexibility. Maybe on vacation, rather than 80-20 or 90-10, it's 70-30, right? 70% of your foods are going to be whatever's around and is available for you to enjoy. And then the other are going to be your pizzas, your glasses of wine, your things like that. And you come back and you've gained maybe 2 or 3 pounds versus 7 or 8 pounds, which we see sometimes with girls going on vacation. And you don't enjoy your vacation any less. You just approach it a little bit differently, and you actually enjoy your vacation more because you don't feel as hungover. You don't feel like shit. Your digestion isn't a mess, and you're actually still moving your body, so you feel good and you haven't backslid on any of your goals.
You have totally just described me, my friend. Seriously. I was like, yes, amen to that. Amen to all of it. Because I used to be that girl that gave myself permission to just go off the rails because I'm on vacation. F it. That was me. And I would eat all the things and then some. And I would even hide some foods to eat them later when my husband wasn't watching because I was embarrassed, or, I was all the things. And when I'd come back from, a 5 or 6 day vacation, I was 10 pounds heavier. And so then I felt guilty. And then I started overcompensating and doing more cardio because I felt like that's what I needed to do to work it off. And it was a nightmare. And now, like you said, I can go on vacation and still have fun, eat the things, be active, and not feel guilty about any of it. Come back. I was literally gone for 12 days. And I came back and I was 2 pounds up. And those 2 pounds were gone in 4 days. Because it was water, it was the travel, it was I had more salt, I had more alcohol, and I had, but it was gone. And I can honestly say that was probably the first time in a really long time that I actually felt confident in my food choices. So it's not like I've had this down pat for 10 years. No, this is life. This is real. but it is absolutely possible to do. So I love all the things that you just said, because you literally just described me and I was like, amen to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the truth, right? It's just, it's taken a bit for, I think just to fall into that, but it really is just an extension of who you're trying to become. You're trying to become a balanced boss bitch. You're trying to like own your confidence and be really comfortable with your decisions, with your nutrition, and not feel like you're being restrictive, and also not like you're being the fun police, right? And there is some balance that you have to sort of find in that. And everybody has a different way. Some are going to be more restricted and feel better that way than others. Some of the questions, so for those of you that are still here, thank you guys. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I know we've already been on here for an hour. I'm going to hang out for probably another 5 to 10 minutes. If you have questions regarding macros, diet, the programs that we're launching starting September 9th, should probably mention those as well here in a second. Feel free to post them in the comments. I'm keeping an eye on them here as they roll through. I did see one from Susan. It did disappear, but I believe it said, what should somebody's macros be? What should somebody's macros and calories be? Now,
Yeah.
this is a really hard question to answer specifically, because there are a lot of factors that go into what macros we would give somebody, right? There are calorie calculators and macro calculators online. There are so many of them. I usually say find one and stick to that one. Like, don't jump around to a bunch of different calculators. Find one and start your macro tracking journey. And the reason why it's hard for us to say, well, you should just set your macros at 1,500 calories and your macro split should be 40, 30, 10 or 20 or whatever makes 100%, right? Rather than us, we can't give you that, because there are, again, so many factors. How old are you? How much do you weigh? How much do you exercise? What is your diet history? This is something that macro trackers and macro calculators can't do. Do you have a history of lots of extreme diets, right? This is something that when we have clients that are struggling in like the online group setting of coaching, we're like, you probably need a little bit more guidance. And that's not just like we're just more cheering you on. It's more somebody getting to know your actual history and your lifestyle to be able to help you discern what your macros should look like depending on where you're at in your journey. So that is definitely an it depends question.
Yeah. There is no one size fits all to that.
Right.
It really does depend on where you are in life and what your goal is and what your life looks like. What can your life maintain, like what can be sustainable through your life as well.
Correct.
So those are all things that a macro calculator is not considering.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris asks, for the Goddess Body Project, if someone isn't doing macros but would like a meal plan, would you mind giving an example of that, please? Yeah, so we do have an option for meal plans as well. Now, if you are doing the online group version where you are working with us in the group capacity, you're not working one-on-one with a coach like Coach Denise, Coach Alicia, Coach Glitter, Coach Erica, then we do have some preset meal plans already in the program that we give you upon, like, before you even start day one, right? Our kickoff is going to be on Saturday, September the 7th. And we are going to do this online as well as in person. So Denise and I are going to man the online kickoff call, and then the gals over in California are going to be doing the in-person kickoff. And this is the first time we've done an in-person one. I'm really stoked for them. I'm sad I'm going to miss it, but nonetheless, before you even get to that day one, we are going to get you your materials. You'll have everything via email. If you're doing the group version, you're going to get our preset meal plans, and they are in phases. And what that looks like is you'll have phase one, which is going to be 4 weeks of a meal plan. This is naturally going to be a little bit more higher in calories because it's the beginning, and we want to sort of taper you down as you get closer to the 12 weeks. It does not make sense for you to just go straight into a hard dip and cut right when you start the program, because that will be very hard for you to sustain over the course of 12 weeks. So I've mapped them out in phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, and they are varying. So I believe I've got 4 meals on there and 2 snacks as an option for the day. And they're interchangeable. So I give you options so you can swap things out. And you will also get an exhaustive list of snacks that we have. So if you're like, I don't know, like I'm not really hungry, I don't want a meal, what can I do instead? We have some macro kind of comboed snacks that are already like planned out for you. So you know, okay, I just need to grab a yogurt and some almonds, and great, there's snack one. And that can also technically serve as a meal. So sometimes snacks, you're not really hungry, you don't really want a full meal, you can do something off of the snack list. So there is a lot of variety there. Now, when you work with a coach one-on-one, this is going to look very different. You're still going to get access to those meal plans. However, because it's going to be more personalized to you specifically, your coach is going to get on a call with you on that first intake call. Usually they do it on Zoom if that works out on your end. And they're going to ask you a series of questions. They want to get to know you. They want to know, what is your lifestyle like? You know, do you work at a desk all day? Are you sitting most of the day? That is going to then predict what your macros and your meal plan looks like. Are you a nurse? Are you a charge nurse? Are you on the floor? Are you running around and you get like 15,000 steps a day just by nature of your job? Your meal plan, your macros are going to look very different. How old are you? Are you 65? Are you 35? So working one-on-one with a coach, it's incredibly different than the online group experience, but I don't want to take away from the online group experience, because much like a lot of the girls here that are watching who have had success with the group, they came to the coaching calls every week. And within those coaching calls, they could ask questions like Gina Ling. I don't know if Gina's still here, but she's lost 30 pounds. She's never worked one-on-one with a coach. She's done everything on her own because it's spelled out for you very, very easily. This is how you figure out your macros. If you don't want to figure out macros, then here are your meal plan templates. Follow these, swap out foods. If you don't like turkey, then swap out for chicken. There's a breakdown, and it's very broken down and described, so that way you don't feel lost. So hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
If you're someone, I was just going to say, if you're someone who can get these things done like on your own, if you're given the guidance, then you can kind of motivate yourself, not motivate yourself because you have a ton of motivation in the group, but you can do it on your own. Oh, Gina's still here and ready for the next round, she says. Then the group is definitely the way to go. If you know, and you know that you need somebody to stay with you and give you a little bit more personalization and more attention, and you need those weekly check-ins, then the VIP would be the way to go. But if you're saying like, I just need the information and I got this, then group is absolutely, I mean, you can get a ton of value out of the group as well.
Absolutely. And that was, Gina said she's still here and she's ready for the next round. And that, you know, that is essentially it. If you do well just being self-led, just give me the information and go. The online group is an excellent choice for you. You don't need a lot of hand holding, or you don't feel like you're going to have a lot of, you know, questions and troubleshooting every single day, right? Like when you work with a coach on VIP, you can email your coach every day. You can have conversations with them. You can pop on a call midway through the program if you need to just kind of get a little refresher, or maybe you need a little another boost of motivation to keep going through the 12 weeks. That's available to you when you work with a coach one-on-one. So think about those things. You really have to know your personality and, you know, where am I going to thrive? If I struggled with macros, do I feel perfectionism is going to kick in and then I'm just going to give up if it's not perfect? Then you might need somebody like a coach to reassure you every time you check in, things are looking good. You're hitting your protein. Don't worry about this, this, and this. You know, every time you check in, you're going to be expected to take your progress photos and your measurements. And then we ask you a series of 10 questions, generally speaking, probably about 10 questions, because it's going to help your coach figure out how your last week went. And we are incredible detectives, because you'll say certain things in your check-in and you'll be like, you know, this was a shitty week, right? Because we ask you, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel like your week went? And we can probably look at your check-in and point out 8 things that you weren't doing before you started that are excellent and they're still going to move you forward. But a lot of times we only associate our scale as the only measure of progress. So just keep that in mind. They're 2 very different programs, but they are for two very different people. If you are super new, if you are new to weight training or strength training and you've never tracked macros or you've never followed a meal plan, online might not be the right spot for you. You might want to do something where you're a little more guided and handheld through. Something like coaching is a better option. And also, those of you that feel like you've been spinning your wheels and you've never hired a coach before and you just can't seem to get everything to click, that was me. That was why I hired my first coach. Usually this is a big aha moment for you to go like, oh, that's why this wasn't working, you know? So Jennifer asks, when you are given macros in your program, how close to this are you expected to get every day? Is there a kind of buffer zone?
Yeah. So, oh, do you want to take that?
So I'll give like my 2 cents on this, and then I know for those of you that are type A that like numbers, Denise will give you the actual, some actual numbers there. Now, the way that I look at things when you come into the Goddess Body Project is you're going to figure out what your calorie ranges are that you need to stay within, right? Your calories or your macros. And when you look at that, and when we run you through the actual process of doing it, because we'll talk about it on the kickoff call, is you're going to get 2 ranges, right? We're going to give you 2 ranges. You're going to have a moderate weight loss, and then you're going to have like a slow pace, right? So when you go in there, it's like, how quickly do you want to lose weight, right? Is the better way to say it. I'm stumbling over my words here. And so when you do the calorie calculator, for example, let's go back to let's just say myself. If it costs 2,000 calories for me to maintain this physique, and I run my numbers through the calorie calculator, and I say, I want some extreme weight loss, right? What does that look like? Let's say that that's 14 or 1,300 calories. All right, well, if I wanted mild weight loss, let's say that's 1,700 calories. Then you can guess if you are falling between 1,300 and 1,700 calories, you're still on track for your fat loss goals because you're still in a deficit if it requires you to stay at 2,000 calories to just maintain where you're at. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that gives you some gray area, and a lot of times we will do, or I will do with my one-on-one clients, is I will give them what I call weekend warrior macros, where they have more flexibility and they have more calories on the weekends because they know that this is where they tend to go out to eat more and do things like that. And then during the week, they maintain a little bit lower calories because they're like, I don't really do a lot. My day's predictable. I don't need 1,800 calories. I'm fine on 14 or 15, right? So there's a little bit of a looser way, and Denise probably has a more poignant way to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the first thing I would say is when you say, how close are you expected to get? Number one, we are not expecting anything from you guys. I mean, this is what do you want? We wouldn't expect anything else other than to support you and show you how to reach your goals. So it really is for you to decide what you want to do. So if you're working VIP with a coach, then your coach will tell you what your macros are if you go the macro route. And then usually, like Diane said, if we're working with some flexibility, there could be a free meal in there, or like the weekend warrior calories, or also a range. One thing I will never look for, and I know that Coach Glitter, Coach Erica, and Coach Ish, none of us are ever looking for 100% hitting your macros every day. Otherwise, you just sucked, right? No, we actually don't want you to stress and fret over 100%. Now, if you want to see results, there is a range, and that range will vary depending on each specific person. So your coach will tell you, look, as long as you stay within this range, we should see progress. But if you start getting outside of this range, then okay, the progress might slow down, or we might start going backwards or something like that. But we never expect you to be 100%. I'm not 100% when I track macros. I don't want to be 100%. It's not only because it's not sustainable, but also macro trackers like MyFitnessPal, sometimes it's weird. you calculate it and it's one number, but it will tell you it's like, 5 or 6 grams difference or something like that. And it's because it's accounting for, I don't know, something else, fiber or whatever. So there's no expectation to be 100%, but it's really more about what is your expectation of yourself, really, rather than relying on an expectation from a coach. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, another question rolled in, which is for the 6-week Boss Bitch Booty building program, how many total workouts are there for the week? I know that there are 3 glute focused workouts, and there is an upper body as well. Yes. So in my Boss Bitch Booty program, I'm super excited about this, you guys. Cannot wait. It is 3 glute focused, lower body focused programs. There is going to be a touch of quads in there because we're doing lower body, but the main focus is going to be your glutes. So you'll have 3 lower body training sessions. I am going to include 1 full upper body day as well. And then we're also going to have some cardio and some core conditioning as well. So you can look forward to that. Now, you don't have to do all of it. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, if I do it, I got to do all the days. If you don't want to do a full upper body day, which is myself, I'm doing this much upper body, you don't have to. I'm adding it in there so that way you can have a nice, well-rounded training program and you're going to get excellent results doing 3 glute days and 1 upper body day. But there might be weeks where you can't do all that, and that's okay. We really want you to understand the importance that in order for you to really establish that physique change, you have to do enough sets to actually see things working, right? You can't just go in and do 1 day of glutes and, a set of hip thrusts and some kickbacks and some lunges and then wonder why your body's not changing. The true physique change is going to be creating enough, resistance on those muscles and actually enough tension on those muscles. And typically that is going to be between 10 to 30 sets. I know that's like a very wide range, but it depends on the muscle group. And with glutes, especially for women, we can tend to err on the side of 20 to 30 sets per week for us to really see some big, massive changes in the way that our body shape is changing. So you will have access to all that. And you will also have access to the weekly coaching calls. This is something new that we're doing as well. So if you join Build with Beast, which is going to be more of a build and heavy focus on eating calories at maintenance and really lifting heavy, that's a program with my daughter. Whether you're in that, whether you're in the Goddess Body Project, or whether you're in Boss Bitch Booty, we are going to be doing those weekly calls. The only difference is when your program is over, obviously the access to those goes away. The girls in the Goddess Body Project will still be chumming along, but you will get to come into the group. You'll get to ask questions about nutrition because Boss Bitch Booty is not a heavily based nutrition program. You will get the meal plans and you will get a progress tracker guide, but there isn't a ton of nutrition resource there. So it really is a focus on your training, and I will be doing training audits with you guys, answering any questions about training, intensity, and then coming to the live calls, you'll get a ton of value from just showing up there. And that is a great time for you to come with any of your questions for your own personal journey on your nutrition or your training, is to come to those live calls. They're much like this in terms of how we run them, except they're on Zoom. So you get to we get to have conversations. It's not a one-sided conversation, which is actually my favorite. I prefer it much more than just a Facebook Live, because then we get to learn about you, get to ask you questions and really deep dive into your specific situation. So you can leave that call with the little nuggets that you gleaned, and we learn from each other, and you take those and apply it to your own, your own situation with your own goals, for sure. Let's see, what else did we get in here? I like the Weekend Warrior summary of macro tracking. Yeah, it's definitely a huge hit with clients who do one-on-one coaching, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that is all we got as far as the questions that came in. I'm going to cover a few more that tend to be typical when it comes to anytime we run the Goddess Body Project, which is questions somebody had about going into the studio and doing the program there, because we do have a lot of our members who are on memberships that eventually want to come in and actually do the program. They've never done the Goddess Body Project. So if you are a current member and you have a membership or you have a pack of sessions, we can put those on hold for you, so then you can jump into the Goddess Body Project and not lose any of those sessions. And then once you're done with the program, then you just go right back into your membership and everything, all is well. Let's see, does the discount code work for the VIP option or just the group option? The discount code is good through Tuesday, and it is only for the Goddess Body Project group coaching option. So if you are interested in doing that, again, we've had tremendous success. A lot of the girls in the Boss Bitch Besties group who chime in did the online group, and they either are staying on my regular Boss Bitch Body membership, or they're doing another round of either Build with Beast or the Boss Bitch Booty. So they're kind of staying within the web of our programs, which is fantastic. So if you want in on that, the promo code should be somewhere in the description of this video. It is there for you. You can capitalize on that, and it will get you that discount through this Tuesday, and then it goes away. And then one of the other questions was, I noticed that in your program, it details that access to a gym is required. I'm wondering what types of machines, barbells, etc. are needed to do the workouts in your program, and if the workouts can be modified with dumbbells, benches, loops, and resistance bands. Now, I will say, most of our exercises, you are going to want to have access to a traditional gym, unless you have a very well-equipped home gym where you can modify and sort of swap things out. It is possible, like Becky Bellini, she is one of our girls who is a continuing goddess here in the program. She did the online group version, was the most amazing thing to watch. She'd be in her garage gym with her kiddos, like these little baby kids just running around and watching mom work out, which is just near and dear to my heart. But she did everything in her home gym. She made it work. She had to modify some things. And one of the pieces of feedback she did give me is that it definitely was a challenge for her. Obviously, try to balance that too with little kids running around. I'm sure it wasn't the easiest, but she got it done. But I will say, you are going to want to have access to heavier equipment that you probably don't have at home. So a leg press, a leg extension, a hamstring curl, heavy sets of dumbbells, a barbell, a bench, weight plates to do things like a hip thrust. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing a big one.
No, I think you got them all, really. I mean,
cable kickbacks,
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, cable machine could work, but mainly I think the plates and the bar is heavier dumbbells as well. If you have dumbbells at home, but you have like 5 pound, 10 pound, you're probably going to need more than that. Yeah, right. Not probably. You will need more than that.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that we get asked as well is really like, how much time does it take to be in the gym, right? Like how long are these workouts? And again, that one is really person specific. It depends on multiple factors, but I'm just going to say, as an average, you will want to give yourself at least 45 minutes of good quality time to an hour, right? And if you are dealing with a busy time of the day when you get in the gym, it could be a little bit longer, right? Waiting for machines or trying to navigate around that. So that is something to consider. This isn't like a 20-minute hit at home workout, because that is only going to get you so far. So if you've been doing that and you aren't seeing the results in your physique, it's likely because you have outgrown that style of training in terms of body change, and your muscles are going to need a lot more resistance to make any big significant changes. No amount of dieting is going to change the actual shape of your muscles. You're just going to become a smaller version, which is fine, and that's great, and it's great for overall health. But we are really focusing on targeting women who are really interested in having nice curvy physique, shape, sculpted, defined muscles, feel strong, and a part of that is building muscle, and a lot of that is done in the gym. So
yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your time this past week. This experience has been amazing. You are so welcome. Mary Jo, Gina says, the leg press machines and the hack squats. Yes, exactly. That will also
Probably
be
Smith
on
machines as well.
some of the programs here. So you'll want to make sure that you have access to a gym. It's super helpful. And it doesn't have to be a fancy gym. It could be Planet Fitness. You know, it could be, you know, any of the regular big box gyms, and you're going to get an incredible workout. So I think that is all I have for you today. We will kick off the Goddess Body Project, Boss Bitch Booty, and Build with Beast. All of these glorious goddess programs on September the 9th. So make sure if you are interested, check out those links. If you have any further questions, you can always hop on a call with Coach Denise. She can help you tease out which would be a best option for you. Hit her up. You can message her or send us an email. And no matter what you do, just remember that you are in charge of your journey, and it is very hard when you have all this information coming at you. So just pick a lane and stick to it, right? Like do it, be consistent with it, do it with intention, and just follow through so you can actually have some data that tells you whether or not you've done it long enough to see results, because this stuff is not an overnight process. You got to stick with it for the long haul because it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
Right? That's it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right, you guys, you have been beautiful. Go enjoy your Sunday, your Labor Day weekend. Have a fantastic, you know, holiday today and tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow, if you are enrolled in the Goddess Body Project, Boss Bitch Booty, Build with Beast, or Boss Bitch Body, which is all of our umbrella of any of our programs, tomorrow we are going to have another live call. It is going to be a Zoom call, and it is just, we're just trying to keep y'all motivated for September the 9th when the program starts. So if you have just recently enrolled and you would like to join us tomorrow, that is going to take place on Zoom. I will be sending you an email, so look out for that so you can register and you can jump on that call tomorrow and get a head start on your motivation before we kick off on the 9th.
Yes.
I'm excited.
All right. Yay. It's exciting.
That is it.
Can't wait to see you ladies on the inside. Reach out if you have any questions. Just message me here on Facebook or email me at Denise@BossBitchRadio. I'll type it in here. And then just hit me up and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I know I've been chatting with a few of you already. So if you have any further questions, just guys, you know where to find me. We're here for you.
All right. You guys are wonderful. We will see you tomorrow. Some of you. All right. Bye.
Bye.